Welcome to the channel, my friends and coin enthusiasts from around the world. Today we are diving deep into one of the most fascinating and surprising stories in numismatics. A story that could literally change the way you look at the coins jingling in your pocket or sitting forgotten in jars at home. Because what seems like a simple everyday coin, the 1975 Lincoln 1-cent piece, has been known to fetch staggering amounts of money, even up to $700,000 in certain rare conditions due to its mistakes, errors, and unique striking anomalies that make it extraordinarily valuable. And as we begin this journey, I want you to stay with me until the very end, because you will not only understand why a coin with a face value of just 1 cent can climb to such astronomical figures, but you might also learn how to spot these errors yourself, giving you the chance to uncover treasure hidden in plain sight. So let's start at the very beginning with the context of the 1975 penny, which was part of the Lincoln Cent series introduced back in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, designed by Victor David Brenner with the iconic portrait of Lincoln on the obverse and the 2 wheat stalks later replaced by the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse starting in 1959, and by 1975 the memorial reverse was still in circulation. Struck by the U.S. Mint in huge numbers in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, but what sets apart certain 1975 cents and makes them worth hundreds of thousands are the strange and often beautiful mistakes that occur during the minting process. And to understand the value, we need to dive into the world of mint errors, doubled dies, off-center strikes, misaligned dies, clipped planchets, wrong planchet errors, and proof minting flaws that can transform a regular penny into a numismatic marvel. So imagine holding a small copper coin minted in 1975, which under normal circumstances is worth a single cent and nothing more. But upon closer inspection, you notice that Lincoln's date is doubled, or that the word Liberty seems to have been struck twice, or perhaps the reverse memorial columns look distorted and stretched, and right there you are looking at a double die error, one of the most coveted types of mistakes among collectors, because it is the result of a misalignment when the coin's die is being created. And when this doubled image is pressed into thousands of planchets, it creates an entire run of coins with the same error, instantly making them rarer and sought after. And in 1975 such double die pennies do exist, and some of them are so dramatic that collectors have paid enormous premiums, pushing their value from a cent to hundreds of thousands of dollars in pristine condition, especially if graded by top services like PCGS or NGC. And then consider another category, off-center strikes, where the planchet did not align properly under the dies and the resulting coin shows part of Lincoln's face missing or the date partially cut off, and in extreme cases where the strike is 50% off-center yet the date remains visible, the desirability skyrockets and collectors are willing to bid incredibly high for such spectacular errors. Then we move on to misaligned die errors, which may not be as visually dramatic but still carry immense value, where one die, usually the obverse, is slightly rotated or shifted in relation to the reverse, creating coins that look subtly but noticeably wrong. Another type that came out of 1975 are clipped planchet errors, where part of the blank metal disc was cut incorrectly, leaving a crescent-shaped clip on the coin. And when these combine with other errors such as a double strike or off-center strike, the coin's rarity is amplified, making it a once-in-a-lifetime find worth massive money. But perhaps the most jaw-dropping category of 1975 cents are those struck on the wrong planchet altogether. For example, when a cent was accidentally struck on a dime or foreign coin planchet, producing a thinner, lighter coin with a completely unusual appearance. And these are so scarce that whenever they come up at auction they command life-changing sums. And remember too that in 1975 the San Francisco Mint produced proof coins for collectors, struck with extra care and polished dies. But sometimes mistakes slip through even in this high-quality process, leading to proof cents with dramatic doubling or cameo contrast errors. And those proof errors are extremely desirable because they were not supposed to exist at all. And now imagine the thrill of discovering one in a forgotten collection or proof set. Suddenly you are holding a piece valued at hundreds of thousands. And the reason these coins can soar to such heights is simple supply and demand. Because error coins are unintentional, they are not produced in planned large numbers, each is unique or extremely limited. And collectors all over the world chase them, bidding against each other. driving up prices to unbelievable levels, and in the case of the 1975 penny with major dramatic errors, the rarity, demand, and historical context combined to make them worth as much as $700,000. And you might be wondering how these coins even make it out of the mint. Well, back in the 1970s, quality control was not as sophisticated as it is today. So it was easier for doubled dies and misstrikes to slip into circulation, and once they did, they spread across the country, sometimes unnoticed for decades, until a sharp-eyed collector or even an average person spotted something unusual, brought it to a coin dealer, and the story began to spread, raising awareness and fueling the excitement. So when we talk about a 1975 cent worth $700,000, we are not talking about a fantasy or exaggeration. We are talking about a real possibility driven by numismatic history, collector psychology, rarity, and market dynamics. And this is why people today scour coin rolls from banks, estate sales, and old collections, hoping to find these hidden gems, because one coin can literally change someone's life. And think about how many people over the years have handled these cents without realizing what they had, spent them on candy, dropped them into vending machines, or left them rusting in coffee cans, never knowing they were holding a fortune in their hands. And that's why learning about these coins is so important. Because awareness is the only thing standing between you and missing out on a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. So when you look closely at a 1975 penny, pay attention to the details. Look for doubling in the date or lettering. Examine whether the coin is off-center or misaligned. Check for unusual weight or size that might indicate a wrong planchet. And always consider professional grading, because a coin authenticated and graded by a trusted service will fetch far higher prices at auction. And the stories of people cashing in their error coins for hundreds of thousands are real. Featured in major auctions and collector magazines, inspiring others to keep searching. And the truth is that the world of coin collecting is not just about history but also about treasure hunting, and the 1975 cent with its potential for errors embodies that perfectly. A coin so ordinary yet so extraordinary, so humble yet so valuable. And as we wrap up this deep dive, remember that education is power, awareness is wealth, and knowledge in numismatics can transform spare change into life-changing money. So always keep your eyes open, always check your pocket change, and always hold on to coins that look unusual, because the next 1-cent piece you find could be the one that tells your story of turning a penny into $700,000. And that is the magic of the 1975 Lincoln penny, a story that continues to excite, inspire, and reward those who take the time to look closer. So thank you for joining me on this fascinating journey today. Stay curious, stay observant, and who knows, maybe your fortune is waiting in the next handful of pennies you touch. And if you enjoyed this exploration, make sure to be back again, because there are countless more coins with secrets worth uncovering, each one with the potential to turn the ordinary into the extraordinary and the small into something unimaginably big. And together we will continue to uncover these stories one coin at a time. Because numismatics is not just a hobby. It's a treasure hunt that never ends. Next, 1971 cent USA coin. Today we are going even deeper into the fascinating world of rare Lincoln cents and their jaw-dropping values. And after exploring the incredible 1975 penny that could reach up to $700,000 because of its unique errors and striking anomalies, now it is time to turn our attention to another legendary piece in the numismatic world. The 1970 Lincoln 1-cent coin, a small and humble copper coin at first glance, but one that has shocked collectors and historians alike by reaching values as high as $900,000 in the right conditions. And what makes this 1970 penny so extraordinary is not just its age or historical placement in the series, but the sheer magnitude of minting mistakes, doubled dies, proof errors, off-center strikes, and even wrong planchet issues that have propelled it from an everyday coin worth a single cent into a treasure that can change someone's life forever. So let's start from the beginning and understand why 1970 was such an interesting year for U.S. coinage. Because the Lincoln Memorial reverse design by Frank Gasparo was still being used, struck in massive quantities at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, with billions produced for circulation and hundreds of thousands more proof coins struck for collectors. Yet in this huge production run, mistakes crept in, and those mistakes became opportunities. Opportunities that collectors today will pay unimaginable sums to acquire, and the most famous error of the 1970 penny is without doubt the 1970's double die obverse, an error so dramatic and clear that it is one of the most beloved varieties in all of American coinage, with the doubling showing vividly on the date, on the word liberty, and on in God we trust, so that even a casual observer can see that something is very wrong with the coin, and yet this wrongness is exactly what makes it so valuable, because double die errors occur when the die used to strike the coin is impressed more than once at slightly different angles, creating the illusion of doubled letters and numbers, and in 1970 at the San Francisco Mint this happened in such a way that the doubling was bold and unmistakable, and only a tiny fraction of coins escaped the mint with this error before the dies were replaced, instantly creating one of the rarest and most desirable varieties in the Lincoln cent series. And when these coins appear in high grades, especially in mint state or proof condition with sharp detail and minimal wear, collectors have bid them up to values nearing $1 million, making them legends in their own right. But that is not the only path to immense value for the 1970 cent, because another spectacular rarity is the 1970's small date versus large date varieties, where two different styles of numerals were used on the dies, and the small date variety, especially in proof, is considered significantly rarer and more desirable, so when combined with dramatic errors such as doubling, cameo frost, or deep mirror surfaces, the coin becomes a numismatic superstar commanding outrageous prices. And then we have off-center strikes where the coin blank was not properly aligned under the dies, leading to coins that show Lincoln's portrait shifted or cut off, sometimes with the dates still visible, which greatly enhances the value. And a perfectly dramatic 50% off-center 1970 penny with full date visible could easily reach into six figures, especially in pristine condition, and then there are wrong planchet errors where a 1970 cent might have been struck on a dime planchet or even on a foreign coin blank, resulting in a thinner, lighter coin with a strange metallic appearance that collectors find irresistible, because such coins are absolute rarities and often unique, meaning no one else in the world has one quite like it, and this uniqueness is what drives values into the hundreds of thousands. And let's not forget proof errors, because 1970 was a year when the San Francisco Mint produced proof sets, and among them some coins escaped with dramatic minting mistakes like double strikes, missing layers, and even proof doubling, and when such proof errors are authenticated they are considered among the rarest of the rare, instantly elevating their value to hundreds of thousands of dollars, and all of this is fueled by collector demand, because error coins are not like regular issues. They cannot be ordered, they cannot be reproduced, they exist only because of rare and unrepeatable mistakes, and that makes them treasures to be hunted, and the 1970 penny in its rarest forms embodies everything collectors dream about: rarity, beauty, historical context, and the thrill of a mistake that was never supposed to exist. And think about the sheer irony of it, a coin designed to be so common that billions were struck, a coin people used every day for gum, newspapers, or bus fare, now turned into an artifact worth nearly $1 million. And how many of these coins have passed through hands unnoticed, spent at stores or dropped on sidewalks, without anyone realizing that a small fortune was slipping away? And this is why education is so important, because if you know what to look for, you can save a coin from being lost forever and instead preserve it as a life-changing discovery. And the stories of people finding these 1970 era pennies in old change jars, proof sets, or inherited collections are real, inspiring thousands of others to look closely at every penny that passes through their fingers, because the next big find could be waiting at any moment. And what makes this even more exciting is that not all 1970 errors are obvious to the naked eye. Some require magnification, careful study, and knowledge of what genuine doubling or die varieties look like, and that's where serious collectors dedicate hours upon hours examining coins, documenting varieties, and sharing knowledge with the wider community. And when those rare examples are certified by grading services like PCGS or NGC, they enter the record books, with auction results published and celebrated, further fueling the desire for others to find their own piece of numismatic history. And the price point of $900,000 may sound almost impossible, but it has been approached because rare coin markets operate on the laws of supply and demand. And when something is truly rare, with only a handful in existence and collectors with deep pockets competing to own it, the sky becomes the limit, and that is the magic of the 1970 penny, a humble cent transformed by mistake into a legend. And it teaches us a bigger lesson too, that value is not always obvious. Sometimes it is hidden in flaws, in imperfections, in things that were never supposed to happen, and those imperfections make the coin extraordinary. So when you look at your change, remember that among the billions of ordinary coins, there might be one extraordinary survivor, one coin that slipped past quality control 50 years ago and now sits quietly waiting to be discovered, ready to change someone's life forever. And maybe that someone could be you. So keep your eyes open, keep learning, and keep searching, because the 1970 penny worth $900,000 is proof that treasures still exist, waiting in the most unexpected places, reminding us that even the smallest and most overlooked objects can carry unimaginable value when history, error, and rarity combine in the perfect way. And this is the story of the 1970 Lincoln 1 cent, not just a coin but a legend, not just copper but a symbol of hidden wealth, a tiny piece of metal carrying within it the power to astonish the world. Next, 1979 D1 cent USA coin. We continue our long journey through the extraordinary world of Lincoln cents that appear so ordinary yet hide unimaginable value. And after taking a deep look at the 1975 penny worth up to $700,000, then exploring the famous 1970 cent that can climb to $900,000, and then unfolding the story of the 1979 penny that under certain conditions is worth $500,000, it is now time to shine the spotlight on the Denver Mint production of that same year, the 1979 D1 cent coin, which might look completely ordinary at first glance, but in the rarest circumstances, due to minting errors, striking mistakes, die varieties, and anomalies, has been known to fetch up to $400,000 at auction, making it one of the most surprising and exciting Lincoln memorial cents to ever exist. And this is not just about the value itself, but about the story of how errors can turn simple copper coins into life-changing discoveries. So let's dive deep together and uncover why the 1979 D penny is such a big deal in the world of numismatics. The Denver Mint in 1979 produced hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents, all bearing the familiar D Mint mark below the date, and the overwhelming majority of these coins circulated widely, used for candy, bus fares, vending machines, tips, savings jars, and countless small transactions across America. And because they were so plentiful, most people never even thought about them again. But within that huge production run were tiny numbers of coins that came out wrong, coins struck with doubled dies, coins struck off-center, coins with clipped planchets, coins minted on the wrong blanks, and coins showing dyed breaks, cuds, and other anomalies. And these errors are the ones that make collectors' hearts beat faster, because each one is rare, unusual, and unrepeatable. And because collectors will pay massive premiums for the chance to own them, values can soar beyond imagination, sometimes reaching hundreds of thousands of dollars. And in the case of the 1979 D cent, the rarest examples, with dramatic and eye-catching mistakes, have reached the magical $400,000 mark. One of the most significant error categories for 1979 D cents is the doubled die. And while the Philadelphia Mint is often more famous for dramatic doubled die obverse, Denver produced its share of doubled die varieties too, and in some 1979 D pennies you can see clear doubling on the date, on the Liberty, or on the motto, "In God We Trust," with letters appearing doubled, stretched, or shadowed, and these coins are extremely popular among collectors, especially when the doubling is bold enough to be visible without magnification. And when such coins survive in mint state with full luster, the value increases exponentially. And when placed in competitive auctions, the sky is the limit, with serious collectors willing to pay whatever it takes to secure one of the few known examples. Another spectacular error type from the Denver Mint output in 1979 is the off-center strike, and these are created when the blank planchet is not seated properly between the dies and the strike lands partly off the coin, and depending on how dramatic the misalignment is, the results can be astonishing, sometimes leaving Lincoln's portrait partially missing, sometimes cutting through the date. And the most desirable examples are those struck 40 to 60% off center yet still showing the complete date and mint mark, because the date confirms its rarity and adds enormous appeal. And coins like these can easily reach 5- and 6-figure prices, with the most extreme and well-preserved examples climbing toward the $400,000 level. Then there are wrong planchet errors, one of the most mind-blowing categories of mistakes, where a 1979 cent might have been struck on a dime planchet, a foreign coin blank, or even on leftover transitional planchets from previous years. And these errors create coins that are lighter or thinner than normal, sometimes silvery in color instead of the expected copper tone, and because these mistakes are so scarce. Each wrong planchet error is essentially one of a kind, a numismatic unicorn, and collectors go absolutely wild for them, bidding higher and higher at auctions until values explode. And when the condition is mint state or proof-like, these wrong planchet strikes can push the coin's value close to that magical $400,000 mark. Another dramatic error category seen on some 1979 cents is the multiple strike, where a coin is struck more than once by the dies, leaving overlapping images that look surreal and obviously wrong. And when these multiple strikes occur off-center or in combination with clipped planchets, they create hybrid errors that are some of the rarest and most valuable in existence, and these too can fetch astonishing sums, especially when authenticated and graded by top-tier services like PCGS or NGC. Speaking of clipped planchets, these errors occur when the blank metal disc is improperly cut from the sheet, leaving part of the coin missing in a crescent or bite-shaped form. And while minor clips are interesting, the most dramatic clips are worth the most, and when combined with other errors such as doubling or off-center strikes, the uniqueness multiplies, creating coins that are worth far more than anyone would expect for a humble penny, sometimes reaching tens of thousands or more. Die cracks and cuds are another fascinating category, and in 1979 cents you can sometimes find coins with raised lines running across the surface or with big blobs of extra metal on the rim, caused by pieces of the die breaking off during production. And these errors tell a story of how hard the dies were worked and how much pressure they endured, and dramatic die breaks can create highly collectible varieties, some of which command huge premiums depending on size and placement. And let us not forget rotated die errors, where the obverse and reverse are not aligned properly, leading to coins that look twisted when flipped, another rarity that collectors love. And though subtle compared to off-center or doubled die errors, rotated die pennies from 1979 still hold strong market interest. The reason all of these errors matter so much is because they are not supposed to exist at all. Each is an accident, a mistake, a fluke of history, and that makes them precious to collectors, because they represent something rare, unrepeatable, and fascinating. And the Denver Mint, with its huge production numbers, created a perfect environment where such mistakes could happen, slip through unnoticed, and enter circulation, hiding for decades until sharp-eyed collectors or lucky ordinary people stumbled upon them. Imagine holding a coin that millions of people dismissed as just another penny, but upon closer inspection you realize that the date is doubled, or the strike is off-center, or the coin is far too light because it was struck on the wrong planchet, and suddenly you realize you are holding something not worth 1 cent but potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars. And when these coins reach major auctions and the bidding wars begin, the value can climb faster than anyone expects sometimes, shocking even experienced numismatists. And in rare cases, such as the finest examples of the 1979 era cents, the price can soar up to $400,000, forever changing the life of the person who discovered it. And what's even more thrilling is that these coins are still out there, hiding in old jars of change, in bank rolls, in estate sales, or in forgotten proof and mint sets tucked away for decades, waiting for someone to look closely and realize their true worth. And that's why education is everything, because without knowledge, treasures pass unnoticed, spent at corner stores, tossed into piggy banks, or traded as ordinary. But with knowledge comes opportunity, and the chance to turn a penny into a fortune. So always check your 1979 pennies. Look closely at the date, the mint mark, the lettering, the alignment, the rim, the weight, and the strike. And if anything looks unusual, save it, research it, and consider getting it graded, because you might just be holding one of the rarest and most valuable Lincoln cents ever minted, and one day that tiny coin could make the headlines. Just like the legendary examples that have already been discovered, authenticated, and sold for hundreds of thousands. The story of the 1979 D penny worth $400,000 is not just about money, it's about the thrill of discovery, the beauty of imperfection, and the reminder that even the smallest and humblest things in life can hold unimaginable surprises. And this is what makes numismatics such a magical pursuit, a mix of history, treasure hunting, and human curiosity that keeps us searching, learning, and hoping, because maybe the next extraordinary coin is already in your possession, waiting to be recognized for the rare masterpiece it truly is. Next, 1981 cent USA coin. We are about to embark on yet another incredible journey into the world of Lincoln cents, a world where the smallest and most overlooked coins can carry values so staggering that they sound almost unbelievable. And after already exploring the magic of the 1975 penny worth up to $700,000, the 1970 cent climbing to $900,000, the extraordinary 1979 cent reaching $500,000, and even the 1979 D penny from the Denver Mint worth $400,000, now it is time to move forward in the timeline and turn our focus to the fascinating 1980 Lincoln cent, a coin that might look plain and ordinary to most people, a coin struck in the billions at the Philadelphia and Denver Mints, a coin many of us have handled, spent, or even ignored without much thought, but in reality, under rare and extraordinary circumstances, this little piece of copper has the potential to be worth as much as $500,000 because of the striking errors, die anomalies, planchet mistakes, and minting oddities that slipped through unnoticed, making it one of the most surprising and valuable coins from the modern era of U.S. coinage. And to truly appreciate why and how this could happen, we need to dive deep into the minting process, the types of errors that occur, the historical background of the 1980 penny, and the reasons collectors go absolutely wild for these rare pieces. In 1980, the U.S. Mint was still striking cents primarily from a composition of 95% copper and 5% zinc, a metal mix that had been used since 1962 and would continue until the dramatic switch in 1982 to the mostly zinc composition we see today. And this fact alone makes the 1980 cent historically interesting, because it was among the last full years of copper cents before the Great Transition. But with billions produced, one would assume they are all common and worth only face value. And for the overwhelming majority this is true, but when billions of coins are produced, errors inevitably happen, and in 1980 the Mint's massive output left room for mistakes that today are valued in the hundreds of thousands. The most famous and celebrated type of error found on 1980 cents is the doubled die, where during the hubbing process a die was impressed more than once at slightly different angles, creating a ghostly second image that appears on every coin struck with that die. And in 1980, collectors have discovered doubled die showing dramatic doubling on the date, the word liberty, and even the motto, "In God We Trust." And when such coins are discovered in pristine mint state condition with full red luster, their value soars, because the demand for bold and obvious doubled dies among collectors is insatiable, and when combined with the historical context of being a pre-1982 copper cent, the result is a coin that can reach astronomical values, sometimes even approaching the $500,000 level in the most spectacular examples. Another category of errors that makes 1980 cents worth small fortunes are off-center strikes, which occur when the planchet is not seated properly between the obverse and reverse dies, causing the strike to land partially off the coin, and in extreme cases, this creates a coin where part of Lincoln's face or part of the memorial on the reverse is missing or distorted, and when such an error is dramatic, between 40 to 60% off-center, while still leaving the full date visible, collectors go crazy for them, paying huge sums at auctions, sometimes tens of thousands or more. And when the coin is also in mint state condition with full luster, the value multiplies, pushing it closer to six figures, and with the right buyer in a bidding war, such spectacular off-center strikes from 1980 could climb toward that $500,000 threshold. But perhaps the most jaw-dropping errors from the 1980 cent involve wrong planchet strikes, where a penny was mistakenly struck on a dime planchet, a foreign coin blank, or even on experimental planchets left over from earlier years, creating coins that are completely out of the ordinary in weight, thickness, or color. And these mistakes are the stuff of legend in the coin collecting world, because they are so rare and so unique that no two are exactly alike, and collectors with deep pockets are willing to pay unimaginable amounts for the privilege of owning one. And this is where values can explode into the hundreds of thousands, making the 1980 penny one of the most valuable coins of the modern copper era. Multiple strikes are another rare phenomenon worth mentioning because occasionally a coin is struck more than once by the dies, leaving overlapping or distorted images that look surreal and fascinating. And when this happens on a 1980 cent, the coin instantly becomes a standout rarity, often commanding huge premiums in the marketplace, especially when the multiple strikes are dramatic and clearly visible to the naked eye, and again, in high grades. Such coins can push well into six-figure territory. Proof coins from 1980 also deserve attention, because the San Francisco Mint continued to produce proof sets for collectors, and while these coins were intended to be flawless, struck with polished dies on carefully prepared planchets, mistakes sometimes occurred, leading to proof doubled dies, cameo contrasts gone wrong, or even coins struck more than once, and proof errors are among the most prized finds because they should not exist at all, and their rarity pushes their values to extraordinary levels, sometimes surpassing their circulation strike counterparts by far. Then we must consider die breaks, die cracks, and cuds, which were not uncommon in 1980 because of the heavy use of dies striking millions of coins each, and when the dies began to deteriorate, they left behind raised lines, extra blobs of metal, or missing sections of the design. And dramatic die cuds covering large parts of the coin can transform an ordinary cent into a highly collectible rarity, again commanding impressive prices depending on severity and eye appeal. The reason these errors matter so much is not simply because they are mistakes but because they are unrepeatable pieces of history, each one representing a moment when the mint's precision faltered and something unexpected slipped through, and collectors cherish these coins not only for their rarity but for the stories they tell, the uniqueness they embody, and the thrill of owning something that almost no one else in the world has. And when you add in the psychological factor of competition at auction, where wealthy collectors battle to outbid each other for these once-in-a-lifetime coins, values can skyrocket to almost unbelievable levels, and that is how a 1980 penny can become worth $500,000. Think about the irony. A coin designed to be common, a coin struck in the billions, a coin people use for buying coffee, newspapers, gum, or gasoline. A coin tossed into piggy banks and coin jars without thought, suddenly becoming a life-changing treasure, and how many people unknowingly spent or discarded these rare era coins over the years, never realizing that they held a fortune in their hands. And this is why awareness and education are so important, because the difference between 1 cent and $500,000 often comes down to knowing what to look for, to training your eye to spot doubling, misalignment, unusual weights, strange surfaces, or missing details. And once you recognize that you may be holding something rare, the next step is authentication and grading, because professional certification from top services like PCGS or NGC is the key to unlocking the highest market value, giving collectors confidence that the coin is genuine and rare. And so the story of the 1980 penny worth $500,000 is more than just a tale of money, it is a story of hidden treasures, of imperfection turned into beauty, of history written in metal, and of ordinary people who discovered that the change in their pockets could change their lives. And this is why coin collecting is so much more than a hobby. It is a treasure hunt, a journey of discovery, and a reminder that sometimes the greatest values in life are hidden in the smallest places, waiting for the right eyes to see them. And who knows, maybe your next handful of change will contain a 1980 cent with the kind of error that could make headlines and change your life forever. Because they are still out there, still hiding, still waiting. And maybe the next big story in numismatics will be yours. Next, 1993 1 cent USA coin. Explore another chapter in our incredible journey through the hidden world of rare and valuable Lincoln cents, where small, ordinary-looking coins have the power to shock the world with values so high they can change lives. And after already uncovering the stories behind coins like the 1975 cent worth $700,000, The 1970 penny valued at $900,000, the 1979 and 1979 d-cents worth $500,000 and $400,000 respectively, and even the 1980 penny reaching $500,000. Now it's time to step forward into a more modern year, a time when many collectors overlook coins because they believe everything minted in the 1990s is too new, too common, and too mass-produced to carry any extraordinary value. But the truth is far more exciting, because today we turn our focus to the 1993 Lincoln cent, a coin minted in enormous numbers, billions upon billions. Struck from copper-plated zinc planchets weighing 2.5 grams, produced at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, and even with proof issues struck in San Francisco. And while most of these coins sit unnoticed in drawers, piggy banks, and change jars worth only a single cent, there are certain rare examples from this year that, due to errors, mistakes, and extraordinary minting anomalies, can command values as high as $200,000. Making the 1993 penny one of the most surprising treasures in circulation and one of the most rewarding finds for anyone with patience, knowledge, and luck to spot the right coin. To understand how a 1993 penny can be worth so much, we need to step back into the historical and technical context of the coin itself, because by 1993 the US Mint was nearly a decade into striking cents primarily from a zinc core coated with a thin layer of copper, a change that had begun in mid-1982 due to the rising cost of copper. And while this composition allowed the mint to produce billions of coins cheaply, it also introduced new opportunities for minting errors, because the zinc core and copper plating sometimes failed to bond properly, sometimes blistered, sometimes created surface bubbles or exposed zinc areas. And when these defects occurred in dramatic and unusual ways, collectors began to prize such coins as rare mint-made anomalies, paying premiums far beyond face value. One of the most sought-after errors on 1993 pennies is the doubled die obverse, a type of error caused when the working die receives multiple impressions from the hub at slightly different angles, resulting in doubling of the design elements on every coin it later strikes. And for 1993, examples exist with doubling seen on the date, the motto, "In God We Trust," or the word, "Liberty." And when such doubling is bold and visible to the naked eye, especially in high-grade mint state coins, collectors compete furiously for them, pushing their values from hundreds into thousands, and in spectacular cases, potentially into six figures, because doubled dies are among the most collectible errors across all coin series. Another category of valuable 1993 pennies comes from off-center strikes, where the planchet was misaligned with the dies, resulting in coins where the design is shifted far from center, sometimes leaving blank crescent-shaped areas on the surface. And collectors particularly value off-center coins where the error is dramatic but the full date remains visible, because such coins provide both visual impact and numismatic significance. And when you combine these traits with excellent condition, you have the formula for extraordinary auction results, sometimes climbing to tens of thousands of dollars and beyond. And when two or more extreme factors coincide, such as an off-center coin struck on a wrong planchet, the sky truly becomes the limit. Speaking of wrong planchets, this is another reason the 1993 penny can be worth up to $200,000. Because occasionally during the minting process, planchets intended for other denominations or even for foreign coins were fed into the press's striking cents, resulting in pennies that are too small, too large, too heavy, too light, or simply the wrong color entirely. And one of the most dramatic examples collectors dream of is a Lincoln cent struck on a dime planchet, leaving parts of the design cut off and creating a coin that looks surreal. And when authenticated, these pieces are incredibly valuable, with collectors willing to pay astonishing amounts for the privilege of owning such a rarity. And in the case of the 1993 cent, with its modern zinc composition, finding such a wrong planchet strike is even more shocking, which is why the values can soar to hundreds of thousands. Then there are multiple strike errors, where a coin was struck more than once, either while it rotated between strikes or while it remained in the press, leading to overlapping, distorted images that give the coin a unique and fascinating appearance. And these types of errors are highly prized, especially in modern issues where quality control was stricter, meaning such coins should not exist, And when they do, they immediately stand out as special, and values escalate quickly, particularly if the doubling or tripling of the design is dramatic and the coin survives in mint condition. Cuds and die breaks also play a major role in the value of 1993 pennies, because by this period the mint was striking coins in massive volumes. And the dies often wore out or cracked, leaving raised lines, blobs, or missing chunks of design on the struck coins, and dramatic cuds covering parts of Lincoln's portrait or the memorial on the reverse are spectacularly collectible, with rarity and size of the cud determining the final value, and large, dramatic examples in mint state red condition could easily reach into the tens of thousands. Let's not forget proof coins. Because in 1993 the San Francisco Mint produced proof sets for collectors, and while proofs are meant to be flawless, struck with specially polished dies and planchets, errors can and do happen, and when they do, their rarity is off the charts, because proof coins undergo stricter inspections, making the survival of an error all the more astonishing, and examples of proof doubled dies, off-center strikes, or even improperly plated coins are among the most highly sought after by error collectors, sometimes commanding 5- and 6-figure prices because of their near impossible rarity. What makes the 1993 penny story so compelling is the combination of modernity and rarity, because many collectors and everyday people assume that modern coins are simply too new to be valuable, yet history shows that extraordinary era coins can emerge from any year. And the thrill of finding a 1993 penny worth hundreds of thousands of dollars among ordinary pocket change is a story that fires the imagination and inspires countless people to look closer at the coins they handle every day. Imagine pulling a 1993 cent out of a coin roll, noticing something odd about the strike, realizing it has doubling or is struck on the wrong planchet, sending it off for authentication, and then watching as it sells at auction for $200,000. It is the stuff of dreams, but it is also reality, because these coins have been discovered, authenticated, and sold for staggering amounts, changing the lives of those lucky enough to find them. The key lesson here is awareness, because so many of these coins go unnoticed, spent back into circulation by people who never looked closely, never questioned why a coin looked slightly off, or never weighed or measured it, and that is why collectors constantly remind new treasure hunters to examine their coins carefully under magnification, to study the details of Lincoln's portrait, the letters, the date, the edges, and the surfaces. Because the clues to an error are often subtle but unmistakable once you know what to look for, and when you find one. Authentication by professional grading companies like PCGS, NGC, or Annex is critical, because their certification provides legitimacy and ensures you receive maximum value when selling. And so the story of the 1993 penny worth $200,000 is more than just about money, it is about the hidden potential in the ordinary, the magic of imperfection, the persistence of collectors who hunt tirelessly for rare treasures, and the thrill of turning 1 cent into a fortune, a story that inspires both seasoned numismatists and curious beginners to keep searching, because the next great discovery could be sitting in your pocket, waiting for you to recognize it, and when you do, it might not just change your collection, it might change your life, reminding us all that in the world of coins, nothing should ever be overlooked, because every cent has a story, and some stories are worth $200,000 or more.